Good evening, everyone. Thanks for calling in today on 28th of August. And I think in the month of August, we have seen a lot of exciting things going on. We shall go through what are the headlines. And this tonight, we will talk about what is the um, forecast for the September month. What September months bring in terms of energy from the astrology point and also the global trends research. So let's go through today's talk agenda. As usual, we will have the introduction, disclaimer, a brief recap of month August forecast, and then the inflation elements in September 2023, the energy, and September's 2023's geopolitics financial forecast covered by PC in very detail for various regions, and also the summary by both of us. Okay. Yeah, this disclaimer here. This content is purely based on what our study in the global trends in related to the 5 elements from Chinese astrology for you to use as a guideline in your investment decision. So you will need to exercise caution in your investment, especially in such volatile situation, and do research on the company that you want to invest. So this is very important. We have one saying says that real gold will not be afraid of fire one. So if a company has very good fundamentals, so no matter how volatile the situation is, they will still survive. Okay. So, and there will be no stock advice given because we are not financial analysts. Okay. Let's recap on month of August. Okay, can I do a poll here? Not since we have quite a number of members. What do you think of the month August? Is it a very volatile month? Do you experience more challenges personally as well? Can you give me a one if you personally also experience more challenges, or you can feel the energy that is very pure? Because I really stated in the month pillar of August, the energy is very pure. It's just pure matter, although we have some small sub chi. Okay, thank you. Jeremy, Ivan, how about the rest? Do you feel okay? Stressful one. That's very true. Because top and bottom same. Everything will manifest. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback. Okay. Okay. So, oh, no effect. Yeah. Perhaps you have been protected, Mitra. Maybe your chart has some elements that protects you, so you're very lucky. Okay. Okay. So let's go through the month August itself. The month August we have the pure energy of Keng metal. For the first time, the Keng metal come out because when we look at the Li Chun chart of 2023, there was no metal at all. Okay, and then now the resource, which is the resource of 2023. Now the resource come out. So when the resource come out, it's also prone to for attack because there's so many fires in the chart. You remember that in the Li Chun chart we have presented earlier this year, there was a lot of fire. So the fire will also counter the metal. So that is why overall energy is still countering, and you will find a lot of a stressful month. So for water here is the hexagram. So in water also we know that it hidden a lot of things inside the water. So that's why naturally is good that both the hexagram and also the energy of the 5 elements shows that it's a challenging month, and where we can see the financial institute downgrade the new COVID variant Iris discover, which is also a threat. I think I stated this last month that there will be, some diseases, some natural disasters, and then the human rights also quite prominent as usual. And also the natural disasters, you will find that this month will have a lot more natural disasters compared to the past month. First of all, we look at, the global heating still continue, the variance, and then the downgrading of the banks. I think PC has already shared in our Telegram group about the downgrade of the bank since we first hit after August 8th, which is officially into the Gengsheng month. This is how powerful the energy is. Okay, we cannot see it, but we can really feel the effect. Then the human rights are all over the place still. Okay, and then this one is even more interesting. Unfortunately, there's a lot of natural disaster. One side got a lot of fires, and there's another side of the world got no water disasters. Okay, so in Maui, have you heard of this Maui fire? Um, I think when there's a fire in Lahaina area that kills a lot of people, unfortunately, and also the typhoon Doksuri in Beijing in northeastern China. I think now they are still they're still updating on the case itself, and also yeah, just this morning only, I think 2 days ago, sorry, 1 or 2 days ago, that we have fire again. It's a fire disaster in Louisiana. It seems that the west we have a lot of fires, the east we have water, and also in our own home front in this region, we also have plane crash as well. And I think you also realize that, as I stated in the Telegram group, that this month there will be a lot of accidents, and I asked you guys to be careful. Okay, so I do not know whether y'all um feel that the road accidents is more frequent this month compared to the few months, especially those on the road now. Do you all feel that? Now give me a two if you do, because I seldom go out now, so I don't really can find the effect so much now. Okay, and another thing is, okay, and we also talk about the Fukushima wastewater. Out of so many months, they choose this month to have this news, and the water release, that is this month, the clashing month. Okay, so let's go through the month September's 2023's energy. Once again, this is a pure metal energy, but this is a yin metal. I wouldn't say that it will pacify, because there's a clashing energy with the year pillar. Okay, so actually, if you are in Chinese astrology, the rabbit and the rooster is a clash. Okay, because they are six position opposite to each other. So anything that's six position away, so is actually a clash. Okay, so this is a clashing energy, and it's predicted that output and productivity will be affected, because the wood is a productivity for the year, and also the yeah, yeah, the bank one, definitely we will still continue to see the bank issues. In fact, in August onwards, we already seen that. So so here it will definitely be impacted, and then the productivity will impacted, and also the fire in the chart, it will burn the metal. So there will be focus on precious metal now, because sin metal is more of precious metal. Okay, so there will be focus on it, but I could not see the support yet on the gold price that it will suddenly jump. I saw that it's gradually going up. I mean, this is quite normal trend, but I don't see a very special trend in that manner from my chart okay, from the analysis that I have. So on the month of September, the hexagram is actually small exceeding. Small exceeding means that is the word small exceeding is actually the Chen Gua. This is a Chen. It's also thunder over a mountain. That means when thunder happens, so it's still changes, but maybe the gradual there will be a gradual shift in the economy then the market erosion and disruption will also happen because this is a clashing manner, and there will be a balancing of trade and also cooperation because of the movement here, so it will be balanced because one mountain are never move and then the opposite and the Chen will move on. So there will be a balancing act of trying of the movement and also the stagnation in this month, in this September's energy. Okay. And okay, so let me just yeah.
Okay, I'll just share mine, yeah.
Okay, so I don't think it's going to be better than August, but it will not be worse than August because of the clashing energy. Normally the yin energy is not that great, but the trouble is because of the rooster and the rabbit clashes, so that adds to the point where there will be major challenges again. Okay.
Yeah, I think for going back to the trend study, I think for quite a while there has been uh, a lot of challenges for the US retail sales, in particular because debt continued to rise among consumers. Their credit card debt has actually hit a new record high, and that inflation is starting to show its ugly head again. But nevertheless, we actually forecast that August would see a slowdown, but then August suddenly came in very strongly. Okay, retail sales hitting 7% month on month. Okay, and then year on year it gained 3.2%. Now the best category was non-store retailers, and further studies show that it could be due to Amazon's Prime Day sales in July that caused the data when it released in August saw a very huge uptake. Now, but then other categories were not so good. Motor vehicles and part dealers fell negative 0.3% month on month. Furniture and home furnishing was negative 1.8%. Electronics and appliance stores fell 1.3%. Now, the other thing is that we also forecast that the EU could see inflation moving up, but then actually inflation fell because of the energy that the energy cost that fell alongside it. But one of the key thing is that why we anticipated that July could see inflation moving higher is because the uptick, okay, in the S&P GSCI, which is the Goldman Sachs Commodity Index. So you can see that it went up, and then the CPI actually came in at 0.2%, higher month on month, and 3.2% year on year. Now, if we were to match back the data against the August release of the July data, the retail sales is only up 0.5% month on month and unchanged year on year. So inflation is actually pushing down the net retail sales, okay? And EU inflation fell versus our expectations, mainly because we think that the increase in the price of wheat, rice, and olive oil could actually impact the EU inflation, but it did not. But the other thing is that the UK 10-year yield continue to bear on the pension funds. Okay, although pension crisis has yet to manifest itself, the risk remains in if the yield break above the previous high in October, which resulted in a pension crisis. So these three things that we expected did not happen. Okay, the other thing is that a lot of talks were being put into the how Chinese stimulus will actually lift the overall sentiment. But after the first few weeks of good data, but then the market sentiment did not turn up as much as expected. So it actually fell short of expectations. So sentiment was further dampened when news circulated that Evergrande and Country Garden are now in trouble. So the boost in the Chinese real estate market was short-lived as the aforementioned developers' predicament dampened the market. So the real estate market remains soft, and Chinese government priority to build out the home buyers and not the developers. So there were not much enthusiasm in the Chinese market. So, but where we got right was that inflation got a second wind, okay, rising in July. So further weakness in CRE market, putting regional banks at risk. Both Moody and S&P downgraded the multiple US banks. So bankruptcies continue to rise in the US. Year-to-date bankruptcies have now exceeded that of the entire bankruptcies registered in 2022. And then, of course, US economic indicators, especially the leading economic indicators or LEI, continue to worsen. And then US interest payment on debt has gone parabolic as we expected. So you can see that at the end of Q2 2023, the US interest payment on debt have reached 970 billion. And by the end of Q3, we anticipate that it will surpass 1 trillion. And if we look at it, the US will not have any money to pay for its mature debt, and every new debt is going to be refinanced. And I think in the members telegram, I've shown a chart whereby the US would need to refinance between now and at the end of 2024 about 16 trillion in debt. Okay, that means now is about 33 trillion. By the end of 2024 or early 2025, the debt would easily reach closer to 50 trillion. So the US interest service on debt will go parabolic, and the US government debt as well. So we also mentioned that EU could see recession, okay? And then right now, Netherlands have gone into recession. Germany has been in a recession, but last night, I think the data came out, I think over the weekend, data came out that Germany barely scraped through another third quarter of negative growth. So it's like it has a dip of 2 continuous negative growth, and the third one, it didn't go into negative growth, slightly above. I think it was just barely slightly above 0. Now, of course, we mentioned that demonstration and riots will continue to occur in Europe, protesting against immigration and fall in the standard of living. So anti-war movement is also gathering momentum. And then right now, if you go into, if you have a Twitter or if you have other social media accounts, you can see that people are sharing about, some a lot of racial tension happening in Europe, especially when there are almost every week there's new immigrants coming from Africa, into Europe. They just cross the Mediterranean Sea. So this is becoming a boiler point to a lot of European nations as differences in culture boils over, resulting in some racial tension. So the other thing is that bankruptcies in Germany has gone up, okay, and bankruptcies in the UK as well. So there's a lot of, hold on, let me, a lot of repetition. So where China EV export is concerned continue to dominate while other exports lag. So China's manufacturing is being impacted because of slowdown from US and Europe. But where the high technology exports are concerned, China has dominated very strongly. Okay, but then part of the fall in the US and Europe, especially in the US, you have politicians in the US celebrating that, China export to the US has fallen by about 14%. Okay, but then actually, if one were to look at the export from Mexico and export from Vietnam to the US, both have actually increased a lot. And then you counter check back, okay, then you realize that China export to Vietnam and Mexico is also increasing very, very much. So it's like, because of a lot of US sanctions and all those, Chinese manufacturers are exporting through Mexico into US and also through Vietnam. So of course, part of the poor sentiment in manufacturing sector is being manufacturing export sector is being offset by exports to Latin America, ASEAN, and Russia. And trade with Russia is expected to hit 200 billion this year. Now, China services continue to see growth, offsetting the weak manufacturing sector. So if we look at the US economic indicators, as mentioned, CPI came in at 2% month-on-month. Year-on-year, it grew 3.2%, up from 3% in June. So we are about to enter a second inflation wave. Now, why is it? Why will we see another second inflation wave? Now, the US government is not cutting spending. Okay, they are providing the bullets for speculation. Now, although you see on one hand that the Federal Reserve is actually reducing its balance sheet, but because of the rising yields, a lot of banks are seeing a destruction of their balance sheet because a lot of the assets that they hold are actually in US Treasury. So when yields in US Treasury rise, means the price of the US treasuries that they hold in their balance sheet, has deteriorated. And because of that, there is this program called the BTFD, I think, that allow banks to borrow short-term money from the government, okay, to offset the loss in the treasury. And that amount of money that is being borrowed to offset the loss on a weekly basis have risen above 100 billion. Okay, so every time that they have a loss, they continue to borrow money from the BTFD. And in that sense, while their balance sheet did not worsen, because the money that they borrow is actually short-term loan, and at some point they will have to pay it off. If they cannot pay it off, they have to refinance. Okay, so that means that BTFD loan will likely to continue to snowball higher and higher because the banks are right now juggling several balls at once. Yeah.
Okay, please see. I
Yeah.
will need to interrupt you. Can you put it in the full screen mode? I think
Okay.
yes, okay.
Okay. Yeah. So core inflation came in at 0.2%, and year-on-year it grew 4.7%, down from 4.8% in June. Now, core inflation looks sticky, and there are some suggestions that the Fed should revise the inflation target to 3% from 2%. And this is based on some former officials here, or economists writing in an open letter in the US newspaper. So, but then we got the confirmation at Jackson Hole that Powell insists that inflation should be 2%. And that means that the Fed will likely continue to hike interest rate moving forward. So the PPI came in at negative 0.3% month on month, and July it gained 0.8%. So NAHB index remained in expansion at 50. So housing starts jumped 3.9% month on month, while housing permits rose 0.1%. So developers are still optimistic due to shortage in supply of existing homeowners refuse to sell. Now, why is it like this? Because a huge percentage of US homeowners actually bought their homes below 4%. And right now, interest rate is close to 7.3 or 7.4%. So there's no way that they're going to sell their home only to incur a much higher interest rate cost when they buy another new home. Okay, so they are unwilling to sell. And because of that, you know, there is a demand for new homes. And that is why new homes actually saw an increase, okay? And that is why we continue to see housing start jumping as well as housing permits increasing. And then the National Association of Home Builders still feeling optimistic because at 50 is still signaling expansion. So due to this effect, the demand for new housing actually increased, and developers are also shrinking down the size, okay, to make the home more affordable because of the higher mortgage rate. So a few days ago, I checked, the rate is hovering around 7.5%, and it's the highest since 2002. Now, US leading economic indicators continue to worsen, okay, came in at negative 0.4%, month on month was negative 7.5% year on year. So you can see that every time the LEI has gone deeply into negative, here, and here, there is a recession. But right now, okay, we still have not seen a recession manifesting itself, mainly because there's still a lot of money that is still going through the rinse in the economy. But I believe that if we were to base it on historical trend, a recession is already in. And why does the GDP did not signal a recession as yet is because of the manipulation of the inflation data. So every time because you have to the measurement of the GDP has to be matched against the inflation. So if let's say the inflation is manipulated lower, then of course, okay, the GDP would look nicer because it is the GDP has to be divided by the what they call the PCE. So if the PCE is low, then the GDP looks better. And if you want to have a clear idea of how inflation, has been manipulated, you can go to shadowstats.com, okay? And that person has been tracking inflation since the 1980s using the same criteria. And John Williams, the person's name is John Williams. So if you go to shadowstats.com, you will realize that the inflation using the same metrics of the 1980s and 1990s, the inflation right now in the US is closer to about 12%. But then we see inflation rising, 3%, 4%. That's because it has been manipulated all through the years, okay, to reflect, to help boost the economy, just like, when the US report is non-farm payroll, okay? Every non-farm payroll you see a beat, but subsequently, there's a lot of revision that is downwards. So over the last year, I think there was a reduction in payroll by about 1 million. So you can see how it's being manipulated on the upside because the stock market only cares about the headline when on the date of release. After that, whatever revision, no one is interested. So that is how the government front run the economic optimism. And it gives a very very so-called smoke screen, okay, of the how the economy is actually performing. And of course, if you look at it, bankruptcies are actually rising. So the year to date, this is not May. Okay, the year to date bankruptcy in June, okay, have already surpassed, okay, has already surpassed a lot of the previously bankruptcies up to the current moment. Okay, here you can see that it is the highest since 2010. Okay, it has already surpassed 2022, 2021. Okay, and if we continue the trend, the estimation is that it will easily exceed the entire year of 2022, because up to June, it has already surpassed so much, and chances are it will surpass 2022 total. And why is it that there's going to be a lot of problem with US corporations? Because most of them will have to refinance the bulk of their existing debt, which will come due from 2025 onwards. And this is how Liz Young presented the chart. Okay, and the higher for longer interest rate would force many corporations to default. So right now in 2023, we won't feel it yet. Okay, in 2024, it will start to increase. Okay, then 2025, 26, 27, 28. So even though 2023 remaining debt is not much, okay, we are still seeing that it has already surpassed 2022, even 2020, all through the other years. And let's say if we see it rising in 2025, 26, 27. So more US corporations would most likely go on default. So if we anticipate a recession right now and higher for longer in this year or early next year, then the coming years where a lot of corporate have to refinance their debt, if the Fed continue to keep interest rate higher for longer, we are going to see a deterioration in a lot of companies' balance sheet. And that is why the duration of the suffering can actually be extended for quite a few years. Unless if things started to turn very bad in 2024, the Fed once again step in and start bailing out US corporations. And if let's say the Fed have to do it, it have to do it with even greater QE because of all the risks that are in the banking system. And right now, from 2025, 26, it will be in the corporate sector. So right now it's very concentrated in the CRE market, and 2025 it will be most of the US corporation. So if the Fed goes on a QE, major QE, then we will see even higher inflation, and the stock market may go ballistic, okay? And so will be a lot of commodities. Because if the inflation got out of hand, okay, the stock market will behave like Venezuela, okay, where Venezuela stock market actually went on a record high. But when it is converted into real money, let's say measured against gold, okay, the price of gold in Venezuela has gone much higher than the stock market has gone. And this is what we will experience. This is when we will experience hyperinflation. So the Fed really doesn't have much choice, okay? Kill the economy or keep on inflating the debt. And the other thing is that credit card delinquency is now at its highest since 1992, higher than the level reached during the global financial crisis, credit card delinquencies, okay? So, when it was here, everyone was panicking. Right now, we are even much higher. And current credit card debt is at a new record high of 1.03 trillion. And average credit card interest rate is at 24.76%. So how long can the consumer last? Okay. And if let's say the July retail sales have been driven by credit, okay, and they have to pay much higher interest rate, and Powell already said that they will likely to have to hike interest rate because core CPI is still very sticky, then what if it goes up to 25% or 26% eventually? And that would really kill the consumer. And right now, and in October, starting from October, those people have to start paying back their student loans. Okay, that means that they will pull off another few 100% per from their disposable income. And that is why I think things will start to get from bad to worse in the coming quarters. So then we also have auto loan delinquencies. Okay, so you can see that the auto loan delinquency right now is 23 BPS above 2008. Okay, this was in 2008 at 1.46%. Right now it's 1.69%. So even auto delinquency is steadily going up. And then we have the delinquencies in the US, just to show, okay? For the first time ever, both auto loan and credit card delinquencies are above pre-pandemic levels, okay? This was the pre-pandemic level over here, okay? And this suggests that increasingly households are finding it difficult to pay their outstanding debt or interest payment. And why is that? You can see that US savings, have already fallen off a cliff after the Biden admin, give them a lot of free money. Okay, so right now, it has fallen quite substantially from a peak over here down to here. So according to the Kobeissi letter, starting in 2022, household savings have declined by 100 billion per month on average, leaving approximately 190 billion remaining. Okay, so that is how bad it is. Okay, it is forecasted that the remaining excess savings will be depleted this quarter, and Americans are living off savings that will soon no longer exist. Now, this will be a double whammy as American debt will continue to grow while the cost of servicing the debt will escalate. So there's really no good picture ahead, okay, where the US is concerned. Okay, so then we have the US household challenges, and the mortgage rates, okay, are now higher than 2007. Okay, and household interest expense have actually gone up. So these are the things that are going to pull consumption from the economy. And that, with the US economy being about 65 to 70% relying on consumption, then that would actually be a hard blow to the US economy. Of course, we can never rule out that the US government would actually buy more military hardware, to boost the economy, okay, or they issue certain stimulus, okay, to just paint the picture that the economy is still going okay, but then the household, is showing an entire different story. Okay, the last few slides you can see, that credit servicing the debt itself is becoming a problem. Debt has continuously reached a new record high. Like total household debt now is at a record high at 17.06 trillion. Then, the bank's distress, okay, it's also another challenge. We all know that 8th of August, Moody lowered the ratings of 10 banks by one rung, okay, and these are some major banks like New York Mellon, US Bank Corp, State Street, and Truist Financial. So other financial institutions were also put on potential downgrade, and it also changed its outlook to negative for 11 banks. So 21 August, S&P downgraded several banks, including Associated Bank Corp, Valley National Bank Corp, UMB Financial Corp, and Comerica Bank. Now, all these are actually regional banks, okay? And because they are more exposed to the CRE market. And since 8th of August, S&P Regional Banking ETF KRE has fallen from $49.04 to $43.74, the equivalent of a 10.8% fall. And year to date, the index has fallen by 25.1%. Now, often if you want to look at the health of an economy, you just have to look at how the bank's shares are performing. All right. Even though some people might say, hey, but high tech is driving the economy. Yes, but then if the banks start to experience fracture, the tech doesn't matter anymore, because the banks are the clearest indication of the health of the entire financial system. If the financial system has fractures, then it affects the entire economy. So, another major bank, Charles Schwab, is reported to be raising debt after news of job and real estate cuts. Okay, and like Charles Schwab, the other day I showed a chart. It is its total equity is 7 billion. Okay, but then it owes the BTFD 10 billion. So how is it going to so how is it going to ever repay that 10 billion debt? Borrowing again, okay, and right now it has resorted to raising debt, okay, because there's no way out for it. And then the more debt that they raise, the higher the interest rate that they are now paying. So that is why the whole economy in the US is like holding a ball underwater, okay, and that ball is a wrecking ball. And once it floats upwards, it will break apart a lot of sectors within the economy, because the CRE market is very huge. It's trillions of dollars market. So right now the banks are borrowing money from the BTFD to try to plug, okay, their balance sheet. And then when they have the money, okay, plugging their balance sheet, they can actually leverage more, okay, to speculate. And that is why you see that the stock market continue to move up, even though the Fed is doing QT. And the US government is actually financing it, because that's where all the $1 trillion are going, okay, to support the economy. So what could happen in September? Now, inflation will edge higher and core inflation will remain sticky. The Fed would hike interest rate again as it attempts to rein in the sticky core inflation. Okay, but some watchers suggesting the Fed should raise inflation target to 3, although Powell say that he will maintain 2%, but we don't know. Okay, as things worsen, he may have to readjust the target so that he can say that, okay, right now inflation is meeting our guidance, because CPI is still at 3%. So if let's say he says that it's meeting our guidance of 3%, okay, then it's time we stop raising interest rate. So that could be what could happen, okay? Because if he raise some more businesses would be going into distress. And if we if let's say he put it at 3%, then you can say that we have won. Okay, so we are putting a hold on interest rate. He's not going to cut, but he will put a hold on raising interest rate. But then, he has not defeated inflation because inflation is still at 3%, and you must understand that inflation is a tax on disposable income. It's a hidden tax on disposable income because it takes away the purchasing power. Okay, and signs are pointing towards a credit event as the CRE market worsens. Regional banks could be at risk and potential for more downgrades by rating agencies. In fact, S&P has downgraded, Moody has downgraded, only Fitch hasn't yet. And there's news suggesting that Fitch could also downgrade the financial, the banks, because it's simply waiting until the Jackson Hole meeting is over before it will actually put up some downgrades, because the two biggest, the two major ones have also done the same. Okay, S&P and Moody. So what's left is Fitch, and Fitch will likely follow what the other two does, and that's why I think there'll be a news that Fitch would actually put in some downgrades. So bankruptcies will continue to rise as borrowing and refinance costs jump and businesses suffered from a lack of revenue. Now, high indebtedness among consumers will become more prevalent and delinquencies continue to rise. Consumer spending will face challenges. All the above could culminate in a credit cum debt crisis, cascading a negative sentiment over the US economy, with the stock market seeing greater volatility. Now, the danger is that, if let's say there's a sustained sell-off, it can impact all types of investment, including precious metals, similar to 2010, 2008 and 2020, where we see that, in a major sell-off, okay, everything gets sold off. But then I think they could be the first to rebound strongly upon the Fed's action to tackle the crisis. If you look at it, the Fed really have no choice. Okay, the US government's borrowing right now is just to keep the US government funded, because my latest calculation, the latest calculation is that minusing everything, tax revenue, minus Social Security, minus Medicaid, minus interest service on debt, and minus defense. These four items only. The US government is left with only 200 billion. Now, how much can 200 billion do? Because they still have other agencies. Now, just for a thought, yeah. In July alone, the US spent 81 billion on education. Okay, and we have not even calculated the other agencies. So 200 billion, how long can it last? Okay, so if we included that, there's no money left for any debt maturity, any payment for debt maturity. So which means every debt maturity, the Fed have to borrow and pay. And a chart by Incrementum actually showed that between now and towards end of 2024, the Fed have to refinance about $16 trillion. So the Fed can either see the US dollar continue to be destroyed because of high inflation, and the Fed can actually reduce the government's borrowing cost by implementing QE again. Okay, but then it will just postpone the destruction of the US dollar to a longer period. But then as the Fed does QE, inflation will continue to rise. Okay, the stock market would, as I mentioned, could do well, but it will follow a similar path like the Venezuela market. Now, the only thing can reverse everything on a clean state is revaluation of gold, okay? So that gold is revalued very, very high to clean off the entire debt within the system. And if let's say the Fed do not want to do that, it can change the entire financial system by implementing a CBDC, okay, system, okay, a central bank's digital currency system called the Fed coin. So the Fed can do that, and then everything changes. But then the Fed coin is not backed by anything, which means the trust on the Fed coin would actually evaporate. And that is why the only way that it can really clean it off is to revalue gold higher. And that is also the reason why central banks purchasing of gold has seen a lot of buying over the last few years. And in 2022, in fact, it reached a record high for central bank purchasing of gold. So actually, it depends on what the Fed does, okay, will be critical over the next few quarters. So in terms of Europe, German manufacturing PMI came in at 39.1, okay, in August, while the services came in at 47.3. So it is already in contraction. So Germany's economy will remain in the rut for as long as the PMIs remain in contraction. UK manufacturing PMI came in at 42.5, okay, in August. Services PMI came in at 48.7, also in contraction. So suggesting high possibility that a recession engulfing the UK in the coming months. So EU CPI came in at 5.3% year on year, down from 5.5% in June. US EU retail sales, okay, this one I couldn't get the data. So UK CPI came in at 6.8% year on year, down from 7.9%. UK retail sales came in at negative 3.2%, down from 1% in June. Adjusted for inflation, UK real retail sales is negative 10%. So that is why I think UK is moving closer towards a recession. And you can already see, you know, if you have social media, you can see how the streets of London are so filthy. The same with Paris. You know, the garden city that Borrell was boasting, you know, is turning into a dump. So then there's a potential for housing crisis in Germany. Now, I didn't show Canada, but those of you who have read news about Canada, Canada is actually already facing a housing crisis because prices have come down by double digits. And you can see here that, you know, the Germany existing home price index has fallen quite steeply. And this is where they are during the height of the global financial crisis. You can see that it's just a few percentage more downwards. So in Germany, they are facing rising mortgage, okay, falling prices, plus weak economy. So these are recipes for a housing crisis. So what could happen in Europe in September? More countries could face recession in Europe. Prime candidates, okay, being UK, due to persistent inflation amid weakening economic indicators. France, due to loss of its uranium source from Nigeria, which it has a 15% reliance, which will increase the cost of energy in the country, sparking higher inflation and increase in household energy expenses. Rising tide of anti-France movement along its former colonies, which will impact France's financial clout over these countries. So you'll be surprised here that former colonies in France, they do not have the right to print money. Okay, it's all done through the Central Bank of France. So all these countries are now rebelling, okay, which means that France control over a lot of the resources in Western Africa will take a hit. For example, France is one of the top, I think top 5 or top 6 countries with gold reserve, but there's no gold mine in France. But then Mali has a lot of gold mines, okay? Ghana and other places, Niger. So actually France have a lot of control over the resources in Western Africa. And right now these countries are rebelling. So if let's say unless they, if let's say France have lost all these resources, okay, then a lot of France inflation can actually skyrocket. And if let's say France decide to reclaim these resources, which means it has to go to war, and that itself would create another major blow to France economy, because every war economy will result in high inflation. And then Italy, it has an unsustainable debt. Okay, so these are actually G7 countries. Okay, UK, France, and Italy. But you can see, the cloud of the G7 is diminishing. So the other thing is illegal immigration from Africa to Europe will spark further unrest and drive a divide between the citizens and the government, because the citizens right now are very cheese off with the government because they allow a lot of illegal immigrants to enter the country, okay, where the government cannot even support them, but they are still trying to allow more people to come in. There's lesser jobs, so leading to a lot of tensions between immigrants and non-immigrants. So more far-right parties will gain political clout. More anti-war movement in Europe demanding for a conclusion in the support for the war in Ukraine. Now, China economic indicators, CPI edged up 2% year-on-year in July. This month-on-month. Year-on-year, it declined 0.3%. So actually, China is facing deflation. So a lot of people say that deflation is bad, okay? People will lose their jobs and all those things, but we'll talk about all this later on. So core CPI came in at plus 0.8%, okay? In July, up from 0.4% in June. PPI came down, negative 0.4% in July, okay, but slightly up from negative 5.4% in June. Retail sales came in at 2.3% year-on-year in July, but January retail sales rose 7.3%, with services rising 20.3% year-on-year. Now, this is telling us that buying merchandise, okay, which means merchandise goods, apparel, bags, sporting goods, is actually doing quite, is actually below expectation, because consumers are not spending as much as they do. Now, previously, China can experience a retail sales any single month, okay, when you compare year-on-year would be somewhere around 8 to 10%, but declining to 2.3% means that a lot of Chinese are no longer spending the money. Now, it could be due to a number of reasons. Number one is that they are more worried about the direction of the economy. That could be one indication. That's why their savings actually grew. And they are not, and the Chinese consumer is not like the US consumer. They would save rather than rely on credit to buy goods. If they cannot afford to buy, then they just save their money. Okay, that's why Chinese savings, as total amount in China is actually about $18 trillion. Okay, and just now we show you the chart about US savings, how it has actually collapsed. Okay, so the Chinese save a lot, okay, they are not spending. But what is interesting is that services rising 20.3% year-on-year over the last 7 months is because while they do not want to buy expensive merchandise goods, they are actually spending on domestic tourism. Okay, and afterwards I share with you some figures why domestic tourism is very, very high. Okay, so they actually spend it on food, okay, and on lodging, but not on merchandise goods. So industrial output went up 3.7% year on year, down from 4.4% in June. So fixed asset investment in January to July rose 3.4% year on year. So the 7 months only 3.4%. And fixed asset investment, of course, is being hampered by the property sector. But in the high-tech sector, okay, is seeing tremendous growth. In the infrastructure sector, also not as high, but still in the, there's still investment in infrastructure. So China exports slumped 9.2% year on year, while imports contracted 6.2%. Total foreign trade declined by 8.3% year on year. So this is showing you that the downturn of economy in the EU, and just now I show you a chart that, okay, so it's actually not seeing growth in demand. So in Europe, a lot of countries are facing recession. So when you consider that China manufactures for the entire world, two of its major market is not seeing growth, and therefore it is inevitable that its export will actually fall. So the other thing is that the imports contracted could be due to, like I stressed previously, that China is importing more from Africa, Latin America, and therefore its cost could be lower. Okay, and that is why, imports contracting could also result in the PPI contracting, because these are input of raw materials, okay, that China imports. If let's say the price of the imports have fallen because China is buying more, is buying cheaper from Africa, from Asia, as well as from Latin America, then it makes sense. So China surveyed urban unemployment rate stood at 5.3% in July. And of course, there's a lot of brouhaha when China announced that they will no longer report the unemployment from ages 16 to 24. People say that China is trying to hide the data because 20% of the youth are unemployed, a lot of all these things. But actually, a lot of countries, including the US, also never report the 16 to 24 years old unemployment, okay? Just because China did it, and then they realized that, the youth unemployment in China is worrying, okay? There's no denying it. And that is also because of the manufacturing sector being hit, as well as the real estate sector, which impacted the construction works. So that is why, a lot of people who have migrated to the cities, previously they work in the real estate market, okay, property was doing very well. Suddenly, with all this real estate facing a lot of headwinds, suddenly a lot of these people would be impacted, okay? And I think it will take some months before it is being it will unwind, because one analyst from China actually showed a chart that throughout history, a lot of young people, that when they come out from school or they come out from the colleges or universities, it will sometimes take about 6 to 9 months before they are employed, and then it will gradually taper off, okay, before the next cycle, okay, then another group comes in, and then it will rise back up again. So this is actually very cyclical, but no doubt the when you have a major sector like the property sector being impacted, it will have a cascading effect on a lot of the on the jobs market. So the PMI for manufacturing came in at 49.3, which is a contraction, okay? And services came in at 51.5. So export market is hurting from global slowdown, but domestic tourism and tech-related services is boosting the services sector. So fewer Chinese cities reported month-on-month increases in home prices in July. 20 out of 70 large medium-sized cities saw month-on-month increases in home prices, down from 31. So you can see that, after the government announced some stimulus for the real estate, suddenly people are also very worried, okay? Meanwhile, six cities witnessed higher resale home prices, down from 7 in June. So there's still some pessimism there. So it is unlikely we will see major shift in favor of the real estate sector, but stability of the market is a priority. And that is ensuring all bought homes are completed. So China, why? But this real estate market is really affecting China's people's investment, especially foreign companies' investment in China, which I will explain afterwards. So now there's a lot of stories because of China's falling real estate, and a number of the developer Evergrande and City Garden being affected. There's a lot of China collapse, news all over the internet. But let's be more detailed in analyzing this. Now, total trade surplus from January to July is $489 billion. Okay, China still enjoy close to $490 billion in trade surplus. And this is because import costs are lower, offsetting lower exports. Now, lower exports is reflective of the slowdown in Europe, where EU is in recession, and lower US consumption. Now, China's power consumption from January to July neared 5.2 trillion kilowatt hours, up 5.2% year-on-year. You can see that it's very close to the GDP. In July alone, the country's power consumption rose 6.5% year-on-year to 888.8 billion kilowatt hours. So that means that Q3 could, if let's say the power consumption is on trend, that means that Q3 could actually be much better than Q2, because we are seeing here 6.5% in July alone versus the average of 5.2% from January to July. So this is one area that could show an indication of where China's economy is heading. Now, China's real estate, according to David Goldman, okay, he's an analyst based in US. Now, Chinese home buyers have paid off more than 60% of their loans, conforming with IMF report that total loans outstanding is less than 40% of total value. So the real estate market in China is very different from the US. In US, you can actually have very, very low down payment, and then you have the balance, okay, like 90 or more than 90% in debt. But China's some of the news that I read is that China's down payment is around 20 to 25%. So it means that you must have the money to buy a home, okay? And another thing is that there's no subprime mortgage in China. That is why, when you have a high down payment rule, okay, that you must be able to down pay, I can't recall, I think it's 20 or 25%, okay? If you can, you must be able to afford to buy a home, okay, so that you can, you can have the ability to service the mortgage. So there's no subprime mortgage in China, okay? And right now in US, Zillow, which is actually a real estate company, they are now trying to come up with 1% down payment to encourage people to buy home because of the high interest rate. So it doesn't really make sense, you encourage people to carry a much higher debt so that they can own a home. And 1% down payment means that over on the longer term basis, you will pay through your nose. So that is how it is different in China. But a lot of the news, okay, the investment news media outside of China, they try to think that the Chinese real estate market is similar to the US, and therefore, it's going to collapse. So the only crisis is the one that the developers and state governments face. Okay, state government, because they borrow money, okay, they sell to the developer the land, and then sometimes they subsidize development, so they have to issue debt. So right now, the Chinese central government is going to punish a lot of state governments that throughout the last 2 decades have used debt to improve their province GDP. Why is that so? Because if your province GDP increases, then the chances for them to progress to the central committee, or the Politburo becomes better. Okay, but I think, China realized that that is not the way to go. And that was why a few years back, President Xi has already mentioned that, GDP is not everything that is to be measured. That's when he encouraged about clean environment, and he says about the rivers and the mountains are just as important assets to the population as well properties or something like that. Okay, and because a lot of the government debt are provincial, and what David Goldman says is that China could easily bail out all this debt with 1% of the central government revenue. And the central government revenue is a few $1 trillion a year. Okay, so that is how David Goldman analyzed the situation. Okay, so Chinese real estate market is very different, and because the government did not want to bail out the developers, okay, and a lot of the backing of the developers are from the Wall Street companies, and because of that, okay, they lose money, so they are very angry, okay, and they discourage people to invest in China. So this is one of the challenge China would face, because if the government do not want to build out companies in distress, that means that they know that, it's not like the Fed. The Fed will always support the corporations. So that is no sure win, okay, that the companies in China, if they face difficulty, will be saved by the government. So that could actually be a negative sentiment on investment. So China shipped a total of 310,000 vehicles overseas in July, a surge of 63% year on year. From January to July, passenger vehicle exports expanded by 81% from a year ago, 199 million units. So China right now is the world's largest vehicle exporter, beating Japan. And like I say, China encourages high-tech manufacturing, and therefore, the continual export of vehicles will actually help to offset the lower export from the merchandise side. So China's power battery output stood at 61 gigawatt hour in July, up 28.9%. About 40.5 gigawatt hour of lithium iron phosphate batteries were produced, increasing by 35.6% year on year, and making up 66.4% of the monthly total. From January to July, China's power battery output rose 35.4% year on year to 354.6 gigawatt hour. The production of new energy vehicles jumped 30.6% year on year to 805,000 units in July, and sales rose 31.6% to 780,000 units. So this is already re-emphasizing, that the high-tech manufacturing in China is still very healthy. Now, China remained the largest market for industrial robotic solutions, with a share of over 50% of the world's robot installations in 2022, and the density of manufacturing robots reached 392 units per 10,000 workers. So another reason why, the China collapse theory doesn't work is that Hilton will build 730 hotels in China over the next 10 years on top of its existing 550 properties. Now, if let's say China is going to collapse, China is going to, is going to go back into a third world country. Okay, do you think Hilton would want to invest, building 730 hotels in China? Okay, so, because of bad press, okay, and China really sucks at, doing PR, okay, to the international audience. But when you have heavyweights of Western media that is just owned by a few owners, okay, it's very easy to write on a China collapse theory. Now, the other thing is that another good analyst, if you can follow him on Twitter, is actually SL Kantan. Okay, he is a very deep thinker and very good analyst. So he also debunked the Chinese collapse theory when people say that China's falling childbirth, okay, would result in a demographic destruction and China would actually collapse. So he came up with a chart, okay. China actually ranks lower among other peer nations of elderly people by 2030. You see that even the US is higher than China, UK, South Korea, Germany, and Japan. But no one talks about any of these 5 countries. Why? Because China is a threat. Okay, China is an emerging global power that would replace the US. And that is why, you can see that all these have a lot of political undertones. Okay, so using automation and technology to offset lower number of productive workforce, that's one of the solutions. It could also challenge healthcare system, but can be offset by robotics and humanoids currently in development. Now, very interestingly, that day I read a report from Xiaomi. Okay, Xiaomi is actually looking into developing humanoids. Okay, and it's not the only company. And a lot of Chinese companies are looking at producing humanoids because they are going to be used in the caring facility for the elderly. So what could happen in September where China is concerned? Now, China real estate will remain in the doldrums as government will only build out the home buyers and not the developers nor their investors. May impact China as an investment destination over the short term. So I don't think China's stock market would see a very huge uptake. Okay, but government is in the weeks to come, I believe the Chinese government will announce a lot of measures to direct investment into certain specific areas. And in particular, I think just this morning, there's a report that China would cut stamp duty for investment, stock market investment by 50%. So perhaps this could actually drive more funds into China. And there's a news that I read some time ago that Saudi Arabia, I think, their investment fund is very keen to invest in China, but we'll have to see how this reveal themselves in the months ahead. Now, since government priorities lies on deflating the debt in the real estate, there is no inclination that there will be a massive stimulus. Small stimulus will be more targeted to industry that need it most. So CPI and core CPI will likely remain low single digit because I don't think the government want to stimulate to increase inflation just when the economy is not doing too well. Okay, the likelihood of inflation moving as high as what is experienced elsewhere in Europe or in US, I think is very low. So manufacturing sector will feel the pain due to falling exports as a result of global economic slowdown. Now, exports of EVs and NEVs could help buffer the falling exports. High-tech manufacturing will continue to see expansion. Domestic tourism and consumption will continue to see expansion, keeping the services sector in expansion. Now, China's passengers in the railway passengers actually see very strong double-digit gains. okay, as more people travel, okay, to enjoy new tourist destinations. And you can see that China is heavily promoting a lot of rural tourist destinations, okay, to bring more development to the rural area. So railway passengers actually hit very, very high. In fact, if I recall correctly, I think the first 7 months was close to, I think, 115% increase in passengers traveling over 7 months. I maybe need to relook at that again, but if I recall, it is somewhere around there. So investment in infrastructure and renewable energy will continue, less frantic for the former, which means that they are not going to invest a lot of money in the infrastructure, but aggressive in the latter to achieve renewable energy objectives ahead of schedule. So China will continue to enjoy trade surplus. And now one of the key things that could happen is what's happening with the yen and the 10-year yield. Now, the weakness in the yen is forcing Japan's inflation higher. Current inflation is 3.3% year-on-year in July. Now, the 10-year yield is rising. You can see that it has risen quite significantly when it was in the negative territory. Okay, so if BOJ does not raise interest rate, then the yen will continue to weaken and inflation will rise in tandem. Now, what is most important is when the BOJ really raises interest rate, it will unwind the global yen carry trade, and that would see massive sell-offs across major markets. Because the yen value is low, interest is low, so people actually borrow the yen, okay, and convert it into the euro or the US to speculate in their respective stock market because the interest is very low. But if the BOJ raises the rate, which means the servicing of interest on the yen debt would actually increase. And similarly, because BOJ raises interest rate, the value of the yen will also increase. So it becomes a double whammy. And because of that, a lot of the investors want to run away from the, they want to close all their yen carry trade. And that could see a substantial sell-off in the market. So geopolitics. Now, the major topic over the weekend was, of course, the BRICS formation with the addition of countries like Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and UAE. Now, what is most interesting is that collectively, the inclusion of the 6 new members is an important signal. BRICS 11 nations make up 43% of global oil production and 80% of global oil exports. They account for 30 trillion or 30% of global GDP, much higher than the G7. They also account for 50% of global gas reserves. So, of course, SL Kantan again give some of these specifics. Now, you imagine if, let's say, you can export 80% of the global oil, 80% of the global oil exports. Now, you can actually cut production and have a tremendous impact on the oil price. And because you export 80% of globally, when you de-dollarize, that 80% is going to have a very, very huge impact on the US dollar. So BRICS 11 will trade using local currencies as the first step of de-dollarization. And with its control of the global oil export, de-dollarization will make an impact. Meanwhile, finance ministers and central bank governors will embark on a work on the mechanism to propose an alternate payment system for the BRICS 11 in the next summit in Russia 2024. Now, yesterday in the Telegram channel, I actually put up a link where, linking to a platform that is called BRICS Pay. And that could be the platform that they are going to improve upon, okay, to make it seamless. Actually, everything is planned, but I think they did not announce anything about a new currency and all those, although they alluded to it, simply because I think they want, with the inclusion of the 6 members, they want to have a wider acceptance. Now, new development bank, the BRICS Bank, will also issue bonds in rand and rupees. Excuse me. Now, what is important are the statements that came out. Now, according to President Xi, we are going to trade with each other a lot more, and we are going to invoice everything in renminbi. You will have a surplus, I will have a deficit, or I will have a surplus and you will have a deficit. And when there's going to be an interstate means on how we are going to recycle and manage the surpluses and deficits. Now, in our coming book, Unlock Your Potential Wealth, we actually have share how that deficit and surpluses is going to be managed. But what is interesting is that the statement, that's going to be an interstate means of how we are going to recycle and manage the surpluses and deficits. What is the means? So it must be something that both parties can accept. Now, the interstate settlement could allude to a settlement in a common currency or digital token backed by gold, because the only benchmark that everyone can accept that is gold. Okay, I do not want to hold too much of your currency. I do not want to hold too much of another country's currency. But if you give me gold, then I'm fine. So Putin's statement, the dollarization is unavoidable, which means that it will continue apace with new programs, new businesses being struck, and so forth. Now, just this morning already, there are 3 news. India signed a contract with UAE to buy 1 billion barrels of oil over a certain period of time using only rupees. And then Saudi Arabia has selected China to develop its first nuclear plant. And China and Iran has a barter trade whereby China would help develop Iran's industry, and in exchange that China would get Iran's oil. So it's more like a bartering system whereby the currency is, as long as it's acceptable, it's just a means to go into the credit and debit. Okay, so at the end they know how to balance the surpluses or the deficits. And what is also interesting is Lula's statement. I have advocated the idea of great financial integration where we could have a new reference unit. The main point is a new reference unit which would not replace our national currency. So I think the only reference unit which is acceptable by any country is gold. So, but I believe that it will not be implemented across the board, but gradually with countries which are willing to be on board. So because BRICS is not an association like NATO or like the EU where they will say that you must do as I say, otherwise I will sanction you. Like Hungary has been under tremendous pressure because they do not want to accept immigrants from Africa. Okay, they deem it that is counter-cultural and it will create a lot of problems, social problems, as what we have witnessed in other Western European countries. So, but then you say, I will punish you. But BRICS is not an association whereby there is an elected leader, okay, or an elected board where it can say that if you don't follow our rules, we will punish you. Because BRICS want it to be such that they do not want to follow the EU kind of standard. Okay, everyone have to be willingly, okay, to come on board. So probably I think those countries which are willing to come on board would then join in and start the ball rolling, so that eventually when people see the successes in it, other countries would soon follow. Now, The other thing is the strategic significance of the BRICS 11. Here you can see that with the inclusion of Egypt, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Iran. Okay, now Egypt has access to the Suez Canal. Saudi Arabia access to the Gulf of Eden. Okay. And incidentally, China also have a military base here in Djibouti. Now, Iran and UAE access through the Straits of Hormuz. Now, these are important choke points of the global oil trade. Now, so right now, all the choke points is being connected through BRICS nations. Now, because of that, my fear is that there could be a potential military backlash in Syria as well as Persian Gulf. Okay, so that is one of the concerns. Okay, so Evelyn, back to you. You need to unmute.
Okay, yeah, I have an announcement here that we have already launched our book that we have written, I think, over the past few months. We based on our research and also based on the astrology energy on the upcoming 5 years. In fact, I think those that y'all follow me, that we will be in period 9. Okay, so I think most of you understand what period 9 is, and we are making a forecast on period 9, the first 5 years, and you will unlock your wealth potential here. This book launch, I think now it's available in all major bookstore already. It's also available online as well at MPH. Okay, and here we will have a launch, an official launch on 10th of September 2023, which is a Sunday. I will personally travel to KL for this book launch. And I think PC and I will launch the book together at the popular flagship store, IPC Shopping Center. And for all our KL friends, I hope to see you all in during the book launch. Okay, it's sort of getting to know you all as well. If for those of you can make it, we all will appreciate that if you can come and support the book launch. Okay, the book free chapter is available for download as well. I think earlier on somebody asked us for the chapter and everything. Now we can share it. There's one free chapter that we will give. Later on, I will drop this into the link. Okay. On the book itself, on the free chapter. Okay, let me just drop it into the link. I can go and do the downloading. And okay. So yeah, next page, PC.
Hold on.
Huh. Yeah. Okay. So you will come to this landing page and you will get the free chapter of the book and also the breakdown chapter also as well. Okay. So next.
Sorry, Evelyn. I also want to state that September 1st, there will be a book preview, which we will do with Casey Lau. So we'll be posting the link in the Telegrams channel as well as on our social media. So where there we will discuss a bit more about the background of the book and also a short preview. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, BC. So yeah. In summary, I think for September, the precious metal will receive attention. I think we have already seen the BRICS and they're looking into gold and all these things, and it will definitely receive attention. But does not mean that the gold prices will go up very strongly yet. Okay, and later on, I will also answer some of the questions here. So productivity and output will be impacted, as we already seen that in August, there is also a productivity output impacted as well in the manufacturing. and there will be a gradual shift in economy. I think one of it will be, it looks like, BRICS could gain momentum. This is also a shift in the global economy and the market disruption as well. Yeah. Okay. So the market disruption means that it does not mean the share market. A market itself means that the whole trading market and everything, the global market. Okay. So yeah, over to you, BC.
I think the worsening of the CRE market and more downgrades in the US is likely to happen because I mentioned Fitch, has yet to downgrade any banks after S&P and Moody. And we already see that the CRE market, is seeing a lot of people exiting. Now, the other thing that has not struck yet, but there's a lot of news circulating, is the potential for Airbnb properties being sold into the market because a lot of the people who bought Airbnb, okay, are facing financial difficulties. Who bought properties strictly for Airbnb, because rental has not been lucrative enough, and they are also facing their own internal financial crisis for the owners because as I mentioned, there's high credit debt, okay, high interest payment. So if the homeowners of Airbnb decides to get out, then the CRE market might spill over to the housing market. So the other thing is that credit tightening could see more bankruptcies. Market could react violently on all this news. So more countries in Europe could face risk of a recession as more societal upheavals. Now, more real estate developers in China could face risk as they lose investor support. Services sector will continue to grow while manufacturing will weaken, offset by high-tech manufacturing. Now, BRICS 11 could see more activity pertaining to trade outside of the US dollar. More local currencies, bond issues will be announced. Okay, so questions and answers.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, maybe I will go back a little bit on the manufacturing high tech because it's not now. China has already prepared to go into the high tech for many, many years already. Okay. For the last 5 years, you can see that they have taken over. If you are in the computer industries, you know what is liquid crystal display. Right now you're looking into the screen time and all this. So they are already, starting to buy technology, starting to buy machineries. Although at that time they, cannot really, they still don't have the technical capabilities to tap into the full potential of the machine itself. Yes, I was like taking care of the commodity, the LCD commodity, and we have been to the to Koreans and to Japanese suppliers, and we know the capability of those machines. And sometimes when Koreans and Japanese sell machines to them, they did not put in, they did not. This is how vicious is more malicious those people are, that they did not give China a full access to the capability of the machine. Okay, so but I think right now they already slowly discovered that as well. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, in fact, TCL just came out with a folding TV screen.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, very formally, like Samsung and LG were dominating the LCD markets, and right now it's BOE and Panda that is dominating the market now. So this is how fast it is that China goes. So right now the Q&A. So let's answer a few questions. I think there are two questions from Mitra that how do the share market performance in September? So from the energy standpoint, you just take it as a reference. There's no 100% accuracy, as I said. I will try my best to tell you that, from what I can see is that the market was still holding on one. Okay. In September. Just like in August itself, there will not be, a major shift yet. Even the hexagram will tell you that it's a gradual shift. Okay, so it will not be like I could not see the black swan event yet. Okay, to support this one. So the September energy okay. It's not only as September energy will impact the AI industries. The AI industries will always continue to grow. Because we are going into the fire period where it will support the AI industries. Definitely. Okay.
Yeah. In fact,
Yeah.
if you can get a copy of our book, we actually
Yeah.
detail how the AI industry would actually grow in the coming years.
Yes.
And you will be surprised that we mentioned little about uh, semiconductor, because a change in the AI is totally very different from what the growth in the AI has been in the previous years. Now, another thing I want to add is that I just saw a news before this webinar that China has come up with a new etching machine for the semicon. And in fact, this company is expected to capture 75% of the Chinese market because of the ban from the US against all the so many equipment. So the previously one of the biggest supplier of etching machine to China is actually Lam Research. So if this particular company start capturing the market beginning of Q4, then they will actually run ahead. Okay, and if you are investing in Lam Research, that's one stock you need to be aware of lah.
Yeah, and also actually machine is very important in the semiconductor industries. They are doing the lithography and everything to develop and etching all the wafers to become, the drain and the source line that become the semiconductor that you are seeing. So that is the key to it also. Okay.
Yeah, I also saw a report that right now they are coming up with a technology that puts the I can't recall, but they say that it is 1 atom thick of panel or something like that in the semiconductor business. I still haven't read the full report.
Okay.
Anyway, back to you, Evelyn.
Yeah, okay. So definitely we will also explain in I think in our book preview in on Friday that semicon versus AI what exactly why is it in this way. Okay. So they will give you a little bit of snapshot on these things also. So we hope to see our members also attending the book preview at Casey Lau's this one the one that Casey Lau organized, and we also hope to see you in our book launch on the 10th of September.
Yeah, if you have not subscribed to our channel, please do so. It helps to keep our channel alive. My channel in particular has been under observation, I think, by YouTube, but because maybe I sprout too many sentiments on geopolitics that's not according to the mainstream media. So my viewership actually dropped quite a lot, from 100 200, it dropped to less than 100. So that's how it is, okay, censorship. But do share and do like our videos so that it keeps the channel alive. Even my Facebook also, I think, is under observation because I have almost 1,560 followers, but my views sometimes is just 10 or 15.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, okay.
Yeah. Is there any further question? If not, let's call it a night.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for logging in. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Yeah.
hope to
Thank
see
you.
you all. If there's any questions, you can actually put it in the Telegram. Okay.
Telegram
Good
channel.
night.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye
Good night.
bye.